Nothing is real but God. Nothing matters but love for God. God is the only reality. All else that seems real is illusory. God and I are one. Meher Baba. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. We are reading God Speaks, Part 8, Evolution of Consciousness. That is the subtitle given on the page, and we are on page number 131. And this is session number 28, is it? 29. Session 29, sorry. Session 29. Okay, go. Okay, we were doing, just to wrap up what we did in the last turn, after achieving God realization, the first step is of Fana, which is passing away in, which is the same as Nirvana. That is also considered as a goal, but Baba says that is not the goal. The goal is not Fana, but the goal is Fanafila. The goal is not Nirvana, the goal is Nirvikalpa, which means the I am God state. And with that, at that level, passing over in, Baba says that is the completion of the first journey. And now you abide in God. That means that is the beginning of the second journey. And then what we did was there is something called Fana, which is to enter in or pass away in. And there is also called Baka. Baka is to awaken or to live in. So we'll be doing the Fana and the Baka. What are the different types of Fana Baka and what does it all mean? We are on page number 131.
The first of the three fundamental types is the rudimentary.
That means there are three types of Fana Baka. Fana, passing away in. Baka, awakening or waking up in.
Abiding in.
Abiding in, that's the correct word. Abiding in, yeah.
This type
the first of the three fundamental types
is the rudimentary.
Okay.
This type is the Fana Baka of the phenomenal, false life in illusion experienced by all who daily, passing away in Fana, gain Baka to abide in illusion every day.
In other words, this is a rudimentary, very basic first type of Fana Baka, and those who are in illusion experience every day. We sleep and we wake up. We go into Fana and we abide in Baka. Right now we all are supposed to be in Baka of our own creation. So that is a rudimentary type, and that applies even to other beings, not only human beings, but even animals, birds, fish. Whenever they go into Fana, which they go into sleep, they are going into Fana and they are waking up in their own Baka, depending upon what is the constitution of their own impressions or samskaras. Human beings have their own sanskaras, animals have their own sanskaras, but Fana remains the same for all. That's what Baba is trying to convey.
This rudimentary Fana Baka of the ordinary, phenomenal, false life is composed of the ordinary sound sleep state and the ordinary awake state. As stated before, even when one with all of the impressions of illusion passes away in sound sleep, the same original divine absolute vacuum of the God is state is established, where never anything existed and where nothing ever exists except the one infinite and only reality as the everything, which is called the infinitude of God in his God is state.
Continue.
When the impressions of illusion with which one goes to sleep wake one up, one abides in illusion itself in the awake state and establishes everyday life in illusion.
I'll read this paragraph again. Again and again, Baba is emphasizing that everyone in creation, whether you are in reality or in illusion, when you enter into the fana, you enter into the same original vacuum, divine vacuum state, which is the sound sleep state. The only difference between those of us who are in illusion, which means everybody in creation, right up to the sixth plane of consciousness, when they go into the fana, they lose their consciousness. And when they wake up in the baka of their own level. If a person is on the fifth plane, fourth plane, third plane, they will wake up in their baka just as we wake up in our own baka. But the fana is the same for all. It is when you lose your consciousness. It is only in the third stage of fana, which we'll come to, which is known as fana phila, where God realization has come. When they enter into the fana, they are conscious in their unconscious state. So that is the difference between the normal first two types of fana baka and the so the first two are called fana baka, and the last one is known as fana phila bakabillah. So these are just terminologies which Baba has used. They are all Sufi terminologies, and we are trying to learn something from it. Go ahead.
Accordingly, in everyday life, when one goes into sound sleep, fana is established as one daily passes away in the original God state without consciousness. And when
Without consciousness. Every day we go into the God state, but without consciousness.
And when one wakes up daily, Baka is gained to abide in the everyday life of illusion, as long as sound sleep does not overpower and drag one once again into the state of the daily fana, which is the one's original divine state of absolute vacuum.
So once we are up in Baka, we will continue to remain in Baka till such time as fana will once again overtake us and will take us to our original sound sleep state, which Baba says is one's, that means individual, each one's original divine state of absolute vacuum.
The second type of fana baka is of the planes on the path towards attainment of the goal and differs from the rudimentary type of the ordinary phenomenal false life in illusion, although this second type of fana baka of the planes is also illusion.
So there is a fana baka which is most rudimentary for all creation. There is a fana baka for those who are in the involutionary journey from the first plane to the sixth plane of consciousness, but they are also in illusion.
This illusion is I capital, this illusion is I small.
That's okay.
In every plane, from the first through the sixth plane on the path, the full consciousness evolved is being gradually withdrawn inwards or involved.
That we know. That the full consciousness which had evolved in the first human form is gradually now involving. What Baba is trying to convey is that there are three types of basic types of fana baka. One is the rudimentary type, the second is those on the planes of consciousness, and the third is the real fana phila bakabillah.
Hence, the fana baka of the planes is in accordance with the impressions impregnating the involving consciousness and differs from the first type of rudimentary fana baka of the impressioned consciousness that is fully evolved or is still in the process of evolution.
Fully evolved would mean of a human being, or still in the process of evolution would mean anybody like animal, birds, fish, etc. So there, what Baba is trying to convey is, depending upon the samskaras or the impressions, when you go into fana, you wake up in the baka of your own impressions, in the awake state.
Every plane on the path towards the goal of fana phila has its fana baka, while the fully evolved consciousness is being gradually involved in conjunction with progressive advancement in the plains.
So jointly, in conjunction with jointly, it is in other words, the fana baka keep continuing, alternating till you reach fana fila. When you reach fana fila, when you wake up in God as God, that is known as the Bakabillah.
But the generalized meaning of the Sufi term fana is the passing away in the absolute vacuum of the original God is state. Therefore, whether the fana is of the rudimentary type of the ordinary phenomenal false life or of the second type of the planes on the path, it does not make any difference at all.
So fana is fana. Whether a dog goes to sleep, an animal goes to sleep, a fish goes to sleep. Fana is fana. That's what Baba is trying to say. Even including the second type, which is those who go into fana on the planes, they are all in illusion.
In both types, the fana, passing away in, is fundamentally the same. For daily, in the sound sleep state, the impressioned consciousness, in both cases, passing away in the same state of absolute vacuum, regardless of all the differences in the types of impressions of illusion.
Regardless of what is the type of impressions that you have in illusion, all the fana in illusion is the same.
Fundamentally the same.
Fundamentally the same.
Although the fana is always the same in both the evolving consciousness and the involving consciousness, yet it is the type of impressions of illusion with which the consciousness is impregnated while abiding in illusion during the awake state that really matters, and that does create the differentiation when passing away in the sound sleep or in the state of fana.
So so far as the fana is concerned, it is all the same. When you are in the baka state, when you are in the awake state, whatever impressions that you have been impregnated with, that is what makes a difference. And because there is a difference in the awake state, it also makes a difference in the fana state.
For example, the fana of an animal or a creature in the sound sleep state passing away in the absolute vacuum with its own particular impressions of illusion differs completely from the fana of a human being in the sound sleep state passing away in the absolute vacuum with his own particular impressions of illusion.
Because the impressions of illusion are different.
Similarly, the impressions of illusion of an ordinary human being will be quite different from the impressions of illusion of a human being in the planes of the path. In all cases, though the different types of fana remain always as fana, yet the different impressions impregnating individual consciousness in the baka of the awake state give rise to the individualized fana of each and all species and states of life in creation.
We'll read this paragraph again. Although, in spite of the different types of fana, fana remains the same. In all cases, though the different types of fana remains always as fana. That means, in short, you lose consciousness. Whether you are a fish or a dog or a bird or an animal or a human being, it remains the same. Or even in that sense, or one who's a pilgrim or an aspirant on the plane, when he loses his consciousness, when he goes in fana, what happens is that he loses his consciousness. In all cases, though the different types of fana remain always as fana, yet the different impressions impregnating individual consciousness in the baka, different impressions are there in the baka of the awake state, gives rise to the individualized fana of each and all species and states of life in creation. So although technically fana is all the same, but there is also an aspect of individualized fana based on what you have, what your consciousness is impressed with in the baka state. That means in the awake state.
In contrast with that, When the Baka of the individualized life is gained in the awake state after the sound sleep state of Fana, the Baka, which in Sufi terms means abiding in, establishes in illusion the everyday individualized life of illusion in accordance with the predominant impressions with which the individualized life had passed away from the variety of impressions of illusion in the state of its individualized Fana in the sound sleep state. As such, every individualized Baka completely differs from every other Baka because when this individualized Baka is gained in the awake state, the impressions of the impressioned consciousness of every individualized life are solely responsible for establishing in illusion the individualized life of illusion.
We have done this earlier in a different manner, that each one of us, first of all, Baba says that it is not that you are in the cosmos as much as the cosmos is within you. The cosmos or the universe or the world that we create every day when we come into Baka or when we come into the awake state is totally different for each one of us depending upon the impressioned consciousness of each one of us. So in other words, although we are all awake, all of us are awake, but each one will experience their own Baka differently. In other words, each one will experience their experiences in the world of illusion differently based on their impressed consciousness. As to whatever you have gathered as an impression or samskara, based on that, although we are all enjoying the Baka, but still we have got this individualized Baka.
Hence, it is that in regular unfailing succession, the Fana of illusion in the sound sleep state is invariably followed by the Baka of illusion in the awake state, which in turn gets lost in the inevitable Fana only to alternate and re-establish again and again, day after day, year after year, and life after life, irrespective of whether this Fana or Baka is of the ordinary, phenomenal false life or is of the planes on the path. It is never stable as long as it is of the illusion.
In other words, as long as we are in the domain of illusion, that means up to the sixth plane of consciousness, we will continue to alternate between the Fana and the Baka, the Fana and the Baka. Every time we go into Fana, we will lose our consciousness. Every time we come out into the Baka, we will again experience the illusory world or what is known as abiding in, that is called Baka. So this will continue even though for all the animals, for all the birds, for all the fishes, for all the humans, all the way up to the sixth plane. The only exception is the reality where there is no alternating. In other words, even in Fana, there is consciousness. Whereas in the rudimentary type and those on the plane, in Fana, we lose our consciousness. That is the major or the main difference between the two Fanas.
As long as individualized life does not really and finally pass away in the Fanafila of reality and in the
Fanafila is of reality.
The
Fana is of illusion.
And become established in the abiding Bakabillah of divinity, it is obvious that there are bound to be innumerable and diverse types and groups of Fana Baka of illusion in accordance with the persisting impressions that consistently impress the evolving and the involving consciousness of individualized life in Baka. Reality and divinity is remain.
Yeah. So as long as we are in illusion, there will be innumerable types of Fana and Baka. I'll read this again. As long as individualized life does not really and finally pass away in the Fanafila of reality and become established in the abiding Bakabillah of divinity, it is obvious that there are bound to be innumerable and diverse types and groups of Fana Baka of illusion in accordance with the persisting impressions that consistently impress the evolving and the involving consciousness of individualized life in Baka. That means as long as we are not in the state of reality or God realize or Bakabillah, we will alternate between Fana and Baka, and there are innumerable types and groups.
I mean, reality and divinity.
Sorry?
In reality and divinity must so differentiate.
No. But if we enter the Fana Fila of reality and become established in the abiding Bakabillah of divinity, so once you achieve reality, you are divine now. Correct.
In every plane also, from the first through the sixth plane of involving consciousness, there is bound to be a particular type of Baka for each of the six planes in accordance with the particular impressions of the illusion of each plane.
Okay, that means even from the first to the sixth plane, when they go into Fana, they are losing their consciousness. When they come out into Baka, or when they come out into what is known as abiding in short, when they wake up, they will wake up in their own Baka based on the impressioned consciousness or based on the impressions or samskaras which are still there clinging to the consciousness. I'll read these last three lines. In every plane also, that means from the first to the sixth, from the first through the sixth plane of involving consciousness, there is bound to be a particular type of Baka. Fana is common, Baka is different. For each of the six planes, in accordance with the particular impressions of the illusions of each plane. Illusions are there, it remains there till the sixth plane.
When a man is said to be on the first plane, his fully evolved consciousness is beginning to involve, and his full consciousness remains focused on the first plane of the subtle sphere, because the impressions of the first plane consistently impregnating his involving consciousness make him abide in the first plane and lead him to experience the illusion of this plane.
So in other words, a person who is just going from the gross to the subtle plane, now his consciousness is impregnated, infused with, instilled with the impressions of the subtle plane, and therefore his consciousness now, which hitherto was focusing on the gross, now will start focusing on the subtle. The gross is gradually now left out, is progressing, and his consciousness will be of the subtle, not just the entire subtle plane, but only of the first plane in the subtle sphere.
Even though the gross body of the man on the first plane is exactly like the gross body of a man not on the first plane, and though the man on the first plane also sleeps and wakes up exactly like an ordinary man of the everyday phenomenal false life, yet because his involving consciousness is directly focused on the first plane, he passes away in the sound sleep state of the first plane, Fana, with the impressions of the illusion of the first plane, and wakes up daily to get established in the first plane, Baka, to abide in the first plane and to experience the impressions of that plane.
So what Baba is trying to convey is, although the person who has entered the first plane, he has the same gross body as a person who is not on the plane, and although he appears to be sleeping the way a person who is not on the first plane is sleeping or going into the Fana, he has a different Fana, and when he wakes up, when he comes into Baka, he starts abiding in the Baka of the first plane, because now his consciousness is focused on the first plane. And that applies to all the other planes, that a person on that plane, when he goes into Fana, in short, when he goes into sound sleep state, he wakes up in that plane only and experiences the impressions which are required to be expanded or experienced or utilized on that plane.
The difference between the Fana Baka of the man who enters the plains of the path and of the man who is not on the plains of the path is that the former can be likened to a man who, after living for many years in a certain place, severs all of his past connections and sets out on a world tour, traveling from one place to another, crossing continents one after the other. Although this man would be daily going to sleep and awakening the next day, as he was accustomed to sleeping and awakening every day in his first habitat, yet now, in the course of his world tour, he would be passing away in sound sleep and would be daily waking up evidently with the predominant impressions of his completely changed environments and novel experiences.
So, Baba is now giving us an example so we can understand. You've lived in a certain area, a certain place for many, many years because we have lived in the gross for God knows how many lifetimes. So now when you are going into the first plane, it's a totally different experience. Absolutely. So he's done with the so-called, let's say, if he's an American, he's done with America. Now he wants to explore Europe. So he's on a world tour now. So now, in other words, even though he goes to sleep exactly in the same way as he used to go to sleep in America, but when he wakes up, he will have a totally different experience because now he's doing the world tour. He's traveling all over Europe. Something like that.
Experiences.
Huh?
And having different experiences.
And having different experiences of the tour based on the impressions that are lodged on his consciousness. That is very important.
Now there is a supplement.
Okay, there's a supplement number 22
on page 242.
242 page. We have to do the chart, but maybe next time we'll do it in a little more details. In the meantime, let us complete the reading part. Page number 242, supplement number 22. Yes.
Involution of consciousness.
Involution of consciousness.
Mayor Baba comments further, quote, full consciousness, which is complete as soon as the first human form is taken, gradually withdraws plane after plane.
So the full consciousness, we all know, is complete in the first human form. And now the consciousness, after several, you can say 84 lakhs, Baba says, it is gradually now withdrawing.
This involution,
Plane after plane, yeah.
This involution of consciousness, which consciousness is already complete, begins for the first time when the hard-set gross impressions become thinned out. Consciousness thus experiences the first plane. As the impressions get thinned out still more, the consciousness withdraws, involves more and experiences the second plane and so forth until the seventh plane is attained. Withdrawal of consciousness means that at first the consciousness which was complete was focused on gross impressions and far from being focused on self. Later on, in the process of involution, as the impressions thin out more and more gradually, with the help of diverse experiences of opposites, the consciousness also concurrently shifts its focus gradually towards self. In the seventh plane, the consciousness is no longer impressioned consciousness, and this naturally results in the consciousness focusing upon its self. This means that the consciousness identifies itself with self as all impressions have vanished, unquote.
Yeah. We had done it, I think, some time back, that a man who is very busy in his business, in his work, at the end of the day, he says, I've had enough of this. Now let me enjoy myself. Let me focus on myself. So with the expanding or utilizing of the gross consciousness, there comes a time in every individual's life where he feels automatically, intuitively, that he's had enough of the gross. Now he wants to focus on himself, and that is where the consciousness involves or withdraws more towards the self than towards the gross outside. Now we go back to page number
135.
135.
In short, he who enters the first plane of involving consciousness eventually experiences the first plane fully. This man who is getting established in the first plane establishes his living in this world of his own, and therefore he sleeps in this plane and wakes up every day in this plane as well.
So it is like it's a totally different experience to go into the involutionary journey. So now this person is living in the world of his own. Although he is actually living in the gross world, he may be doing business, he may be going to office, he may be eating, drinking, sleeping, walking, talking, whatever it may be, living a family life, whatever. But the consciousness is focused not on the gross, but on the subtle in the first plane. So he is, Baba uses the word inverted commas, he lives in his world of his own. So apparently from outside, no one can recognize that he is living in a world of his own. That means he is on the first plane, second plane, third plane, whatever. But such a person sleeps, Baba says, in this plane and wakes up every day in this plane as well. Obviously, now he is in this plane. But to an outsider, he is just like an ordinary human being. In exactly
the same way, all individualized consciousness in all other planes passes away in the fana of those particular planes to wake up in such planes and establish the everyday life baka in these particular planes.
So a person on the third plane, fourth plane, fifth plane will be living in the world of his own. He would be going into the baka of that plane into the fana of that plane, and then when he wakes up, he will wake up in the baka of that particular plane. And all this again, as I said, the platform, the background is the impressions which are covering the consciousness.
Nevertheless, the fana baka of every plane of the path is fundamentally of the same type because it pertains only to consciousness that is evolving gradually and not to that of the evolving or of the evolved consciousness.
So in other words, the fana baka of all on the planes from the first to the sixth would be quite different from the fana baka of the evolving consciousness, which means pre-human consciousness, or the evolved consciousness, which means the human consciousness. So what Baba is trying to say is that it is quite different from the evolving and the evolved consciousness. That is the second type of fana baka, which is of the planes, and they are the same from the first to the sixth plane.
Whatever difference there is to differentiate the fana baka of one plane from another plane would only be such as would exist between two men living on two different continents of the same earth and having their own individual impressions of that particular part of the earth on which each lives.
So again, Baba is giving an example. Although somebody is on the first plane, somebody is on the sixth plane, that fana baka of that first to sixth plane, it is as if somebody is living in one continent, the other person is living on the other continent. But both these continents are on earth, and both of them will have the experience according to where they are stationed. First, second, third, fourth plane.
The man in America has his own impressions and relative experiences of his individualized life. The same is true of the man in Asia who has his own impressions and experiences related to his continent, which is quite different from America.
The experiences are quite different, but the fana is the same. And when you get up, I use the word get up, when you wake up, when you start abiding in, when you are in baka, you will experience the experiences of that plane only. It cannot be that a person goes to sleep or goes into fana in the first plane and then wakes up in the fifth plane. Nothing of that sort. He will wake up in the same plane because his consciousness is still impressioned with certain samskaric impressions.
But the fundamental fact remains that both men live on the same earth. Despite the vast difference between the impressions and the consequent experiences of these two men, yet when both sleep, they both pass away in sound sleep. And whether one sleeps on a bed of velvet or the other on a bed of hay, it is quite immaterial when both can equally enjoy the same sound sleep state.
So what Baba is trying to convey is when anybody goes into fana or sound sleep state, the experience is the same. And this Baba is talking about the evolving consciousness, which is the pre-human, the evolved consciousness, which is the human, or the involving consciousness, which is from the first plane to the sixth plane of consciousness. As whether you sleep on the hay or on a mattress or what? Velvet bed. The experience of sound sleep is the same.
In like manner, when both wake up, they both can live their individual lives in illusion on the same earth, irrespective of the difference in their impressions and their consequent relative experiences due to living on different continents.
In other words, the moment you come out in the Baka, you create your own creation, you create your own world, you create your own Baka, and you live in your own world.
Thus, the Fana Bakas of all the planes on the path are not in any way different fundamentally, although each and every plane on the path has its own Fana and Baka when individualized life on the planes is under consideration. Just as the rudimentary first type of Fana and Baka includes all the individualized Fanas and Bakas of dogs, horses, camels, elephants, of all creatures and human beings that live the phenomenal false life of illusion in the gross world, so also the second type of Fana and Baka of the planes on the path include all the individualized Fana Bakas of each and all on every plane from the first through the sixth planes of the illusory, subtle and mental worlds.
I don't think this requires explanation. So in the rudimentary type, the first type, whether it's a dog or a camel or a horse or elephant or a human being, the Fana Baba is divided into the rudimentary, evolving and evolved as one, and involving as the second. So in the involving, whether you are on the first plane or on the sixth plane, which is the extreme end of the involving consciousness, the Fana Baka is the same.
When a man in a particular plane, with his consciousness gradually involving, becomes completely dazed by the enchanting experiences of the plane, the man is said to be a madzub of this particular plane.
So,
Such a madzub is completely absorbed and overpowered by the impressions of illusion of the plane, which consistently impregnate his consciousness.
elsewhere, Baba had said that as you are traveling on the plane, you get into what is known as a hayrat, or also you get into an enchantment. And this you get into an enchantment, Baba explains elsewhere, and he gives this analogy that you are traveling from one destination to the other destination, and the train stops at those junctions, first plane, second plane, third plane, and you get down from the train, not plane, I think I said plane, train. Yeah, and then you walk into the marketplace, you walk into what is known as the lanes and by lanes, Gali Gucci we call it, and there is so much of funfair, there is so much of attraction, there is so much of enchantment that you get lost over there. Somewhere else Baba has said that you get drunk, you get into that musti, and such people, they are called mazubs of that particular plane. This has nothing to do with the mazub kamil who is on the seventh plane of consciousness. So, and those who drink but they are very sober, they can walk straight. That means they haven't really gone into the bazaar, into the fair, into the mela, all you call. They have been on the station And so they are the Saliks. That means the state of Masti or Must or Mazubiyat is not to be aspired for. It is not something, oh wow, he's a must, no. It is he's got lost. He has got lost and he has to be brought back to the station and put in the train. So that is what Baba is trying to say. He's such a mazub, is completely absorbed and overpowered. He is overpowered by the impressions of illusion of that plane, which consistently impregnate his consciousness. So that is the mazub of that particular plane. You can also call him a must.
Even in the awake state, this Madzub of the plane behaves as if he were completely intoxicated by and drowned in the enchantment of the plane. Such a man is commonly known as a mast, meaning thereby that a man is God intoxicated.
So generally we use the term must for those who are intoxicated with their love for God and who have lost consciousness partially or fully of their bodies and the surroundings and the world by being enchanted by the whatever the enchantment of the planes. They are like drunks. They are drunk. So they get sometimes, especially between, we have done this earlier, especially between the third and the fourth plane of consciousness, there is a particular mukam, there is a particular hayrat. Means you get stuck up in that, and you can get stuck up not only just for hours and days and weeks and months, years, sometimes even for lifetime, unless a perfect master or a pastor who is above him can help him and shake him out of that hayrat.
On the other hand, if a man in a particular plane does not get absorbed in and overpowered by the fascinating experiences of the plane, but continues to maintain his poise throughout, while his involving consciousness is persistently impressed by the impressions of illusion of that plane, he is then said to be a Salik of the particular plane.
Now there are two asterisks. We missed out on the first one also. Masti.
Particular plane,
Yeah.
The Madzub and Salik of the planes should not be confused with the real Madzub of the seventh plane known as Madzub-e-Kamil, perfect Madzub, nor the real Salik of the seventh plane.
Although the terminology is the same, the Mazub or Salik, they should not be confused with the real Mazub, which is Mazub-e-Kamil, or a real Salik, which means what we call as Paramhamsa, one who has already realized God and has got consciousness of his body and surrounding. Don't be confused with that. That's what Baba is trying to say.
He said to be, here Baba is given an asterisk to see the above footnote. Such a Salik to all external appearances behaves like a very normal man of the world, even though his consciousness is progressively involving and is completely dissociated from the gross world as far as his consciousness fully focused on the particular plane is concerned. The sulukiyat and masti of each plane are different.
So on each plane you can have masti. On each plane you may be a salik, which means very poised, very stable. Yes, enchanted, but not damadol, so to speak. Or you can be a must.
There are, however, certain cases when a man in a particular plane is sometimes completely drowned in and absorbed by the fascination of the experiences of the plane and behaves like a madzub. And at other times, he regains his poise and behaves like an ordinary normal salik of the plane.
So there may be a time when he is not all the time in the masti, or he is not all the time very poised and very balanced. Sometimes he goes into a masti, sometimes he is poised. So if he is most of the time in masti, then he is called mazub salik. Or if he is most of the time very poised and sometimes he goes into that masti, then he is called salik mazub. That way.
Such a man on the plane is said to be a madzub salik of the plane if the predominant behavior is that of a madzub, and a salik madzub of the plane if the predominant behavior is that of a Salik.
Of that particular plane only, second, third, fourth, whatever.
Such a state in illusion may be compared with the Turiya Avastha at the divine junction in reality.
So a similar state is also there in the divine junction. When we do the 10 states of God, we will see that after the eighth is where you have God realization. There are some who go towards the ninth, which means the Paramhamsas, where sometimes they are, that is the real Salukiyat and Mazubiyat, but we won't discuss that now till you reach the 10th state, which is a Kutubiyat. So that there is this divine junction between the 8th and the 10th states of God.
The third type of Fana Baka is of...
Sorry, and that is called Turiya Avastha. That's called Turiya Avastha.
The third type of Fana Baka is of the seventh plane of the final involution of consciousness and is the real Fanafila of the reality and the real Bakabillah of the divinity.
So there were three types. First was the rudimentary, which applied to all the creatures evolving as well as evolved, which means up to human stage. The second stage applied to all the people, all those who are in the involutionary process, right from the first plane of consciousness to the sixth plane of consciousness. In both these, the main thing is when you go into Fana, you lose your consciousness. Now this is the third Fana Baka, which is the Fana Baka of the reality, and that is why it is known as Fanafila and Bakabillah.
Wow.
The third type.
I read it. When, shall I read it again?
You can read the first three lines again.
Where the third type of Fana Baka is of the seventh plane of the final involution of consciousness.
Seventh plane is the plane of realization.
And is the real Fanafila of the reality and the real Bakabillah of the divinity. When the impressioned consciousness of individualized life is totally and finally relieved of all impressions of the illusion, and when this unburdened or impressionless individualized self consciously passes away in the
Consciously passes away. See, this is the very important word. Whenever the other two, when we pass away into the Fana, we lose consciousness. Here it is consciously passes away in the original divine
absolute vacuum to gain the Fanafila or the I am God state. The goal is finally attained. This is the state of real Mazubiyat.
Real Mazubiyat, which means the Mazubiyat of the seventh plane, which means Mazube Kamil. There's supplement number 23, page number 242.
Oh. 5, supplement 23, 5 algebraic definition. 1. God. God is equal to infinite existence plus infinite knowledge plus infinite bliss minus unconsciousness.
Easy. I'll repeat this. God is equal to infinite existence is God, plus infinite knowledge, plus infinite bliss, minus unconsciousness. That means God is never unconscious.
Always conscious.
Always conscious.
That is equal to Sat plus Chit plus Anand minus unconsciousness. That is equal to Sachidanand minus unconsciousness.
So that is God.
Number 2. Perfect master is equal to Kutub is equal to Sadguru is equal to infinite existence plus infinite knowledge plus infinite bliss plus consciousness. That is equal to conscious of being infinite and conscious of finite simultaneously. Why did Baba say? Why should you say minus unconscious? He could jolly well have said plus consciousness.
Sorry?
Anya, he is using minus unconsciousness. Here he is using plus consciousness.
Plus consciousness means that a Sadguru or a perfect master or a Kutub is conscious of himself being God, and he is also conscious simultaneously of the three illusory finite worlds, but he recognizes them and knows them as finite, as illusory, as shadowy, as dream, as not a reality.
Then why minus unconsciousness?
That means unconsciousness is not there, that means he's conscious.
Are but then
But
plus
here,
consciousness?
here in God, he is not conscious of the finite world. That is why we had done that earlier. In order to be perfect, these are not the exact words, but words to the effect. God as God is not perfect. They are not the exact words. Man as man is also not perfect. It is only when God becomes man and functions as the God man, or when man becomes God and functions as the man God, which is Kutub, Sadguru or perfect master, that is where perfection comes. That means he is conscious of his reality of the I am God state, infinite knowledge, power and bliss, and he is also conscious of this phenomenal illusory creation. Third,
That is equal to conscious of being infinite and conscious of finite simultaneously.
simultaneously.
Number 3, Savior.
Savior would mean
Perfect
Rasul
man.
Khuda, Buddha, Christ, perfect avatar, whatever. That is the meaning of savior.
Savior is equal to perfect man, is equal to Insan-e-Kamil, is equal to Puratan Purush, is equal to Buddha, is equal to Sahib-e-Zaman, is equal to Rasul, is equal to Avatar,
Rasul would mean a messenger.
is equal to living Christ.
Is equal to infinite existence.
All of this means it is equal to infinite existence plus infinite knowledge plus infinite bliss plus consciousness. Is equal to conscious of being infinite and conscious of being finite simultaneously. That
So
means
in other
both
words-
perfect master and savior are the same. But
In terms of their experience, the perfect master and the savior or the avatar is the same. But in terms of their duties, they are different.
4. Man or Jivatma or Insan is equal to body plus energy plus mind plus consciousness plus soul. Majzub-e-Kamil is equal to divine I.
Mazhub Kamil is the one who has achieved Fana Fila.
7th
We just did that. Huh?
is equal to divine consciousness minus finite consciousness.
A Mazhub-e-Kamil is not conscious of creation, is not conscious obviously of himself, of his body, of the three worlds, of anything except I am God. That's about all. In divine I, the finite, limited, separative, self-centric, ego mind is annihilated, and the I is now transformed into the divine I. So
Back-
these are the algebraic 5 definitions which Baba has given.
Back to
Any question? No. Good. Back to page 137.
7.
Okay.
When you see, then when you see the equations, it stays well. The only but infinite difference between the fanas of all the different individualized.
Where are you?
137.
Sorry.
Of all the different individualized species and states of illusory life, and the final and real fana of the divine life is that in the former, the consciousness is nil, while in the latter, full consciousness prevails.
So that is the one and only difference between the fana of the rudimentary plus involving consciousness. That means those prior to human beings, and the involving consciousness from first to the sixth plane, you put them in one lot and they lose their consciousness when they enter fana. Whereas the one who is experiencing fana fila or who experiences the real fana, he does not lose his consciousness. He is conscious in that state of fana. That's the main. I'll read this again because is very important. That is the main important thing. The only but infinite difference between the fanas of all the different individualized species and states of illusory life and the final and the real fana of the divine life is that in the former the consciousness is nil, we become unconscious, while in the latter full consciousness prevails. So that's the major difference. That's the only difference.
After the state of Fanafila, the state of Bakabillah is established by some individualized selves to live the life of God as man God on the earth. Such a man God lives at one and the same time in all states of life and in all planes. The life of man in illusion, knowing illusion as illusion,
Knowing illusion as illusion.
and of God in reality. This is the state of real Sulukiyat.
Suluk, Suluk, that means there are few from those who have achieved Mazubiyat who will, retaining their God consciousness, also regain duality consciousness or illusion consciousness, knowing illusion as illusion, and they are called Saliks, and they are supposed to be in a state of Sulukiyat.
After attaining the state of Fanafila and before establishing the state of Bakabillah, there is also a state of Turiya
We
Avastha
did this Turiya Avastha just now. Huh?
at the divine junction between Fanafila and Bakabillah. In this state, there is sometimes the experience of real Madzupiyat of the Fanafila and sometimes the experience of real Sulukiyat of the Bakabillah. This is the state of the real Madzub Salik or Salik Madzub as the case may be.
We have seen this, that in the plains also, sometimes we have pure mazubs, that means all the time mazubiyat, all the time masti, all the time drunk. Or pure saliks, all the time very poised, very balanced. They are in the state of suluki. They are on the plains. But there are some who are in between, like the Turiya Avastha. If their predominant nature is that of masti, they are known as Mazub Salik. And if the predominant nature is that to be poised, we call them Salik Mazub. But those are on the plains. This is the real, that means after achieving God realization in the 8th state of God, there are some before establishing themselves in Bakabillah, they pass through the 9th state, which is known as this, what is it called? 1 minute. I'm getting lost. Anyway, Turiya Avastha. This is called the Turiya Avastha. So sometimes they are Mazub Salik, sometimes they are Salik Mazub. You had a question, so my thought went there. Go ahead.
Again, it's a very silly question.
No, please,
It's
and
coming
because
from.
silly answer.
It's the question is when you say the poised state, when a pathik is very, you can say it's focused. It's
Yes.
very focused.
Yes.
And other aspect is what do
They
you call?
get enchanted by the enchantment
Yeah.
of the plane.
Okay.
Because Baba says, here you get it. See, in the gross world, we get enchanted by so many temptations. Baba says, that is nothing.
So
That
you.
is insignificant compared to the enchantment of the planes. So people may get a little
Lost in the plane.
lost in the plane.
Okay, and they do not want to move on to 4th, 5th, 6th.
Yeah.
They are so engrossed
Uh-huh.
that they don't even feel that they need to move on. Sometimes they even feel that they have arrived. That they have, I have reached a goal. Now anything I can do, I'm in a state of maja. I'm in a state of masti.
So this means when a person is on 4th plane, he or she might think that this is the God realization.
This is the final junction.
They
You
have
see?
arrived.
So
They
that
have
is
arrived.
that is the masti state.
He's in a masti.
So that is boarding of the train and
No, getting
No,
down
get-
from the train,
yeah, deboarding the
walking
train, I'm
out
sorry.
of the station,
Yeah, deboarding
and
the
getting
train.
lost in the mela.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I use the wrong word. Deboarding the train and lost in the
Fair.
in the fair.
FAI,
yeah.
Mela.
Mela,
Baba's
Baba used the word mela
Baba's
sometimes.
used the word mela also.
So we are not expected to get enchanted by the enchantment of the planes, but stay focused
We are
on.
not expected to go out into the world. We are supposed, where the station is, be at the station.
That is just
the
an
train
analogy
comes,
which Baba had
that's
given.
the analogy.
So we need to be very focused on our goal, where we
Yeah.
want to reach.
So this means we have to read God Speaks during our plane journey also.
Yeah.
No, but when you have read
Plane
it,
journey in the train.
no, but you got to be focused. When you read this, you'll know the
So now
perils.
when you go into the planes, you will
You know the
remember,
perils.
oh,
No, I should not go.
there's a lot of shining, something is
Yeah,
shining,
I should
some
not go.
dancing damsel. I don't have to go there, Baba. I'll get stuck up over there.
This reading will
Maybe
stay
that's
in
why Baba is saying that everyone should read God Speaks.
so that it gets impregnated in our consciousness of what should be a code of conduct.
All right.
I try to use God speaks language.
Go ahead.
Wait. After
Read it. What is that?
After attaining
I
the
think
state
you
of
read
Fana
this
Fila and before
No,
establishing
you read
I have
that.
to-
Huh?
the consciousness of the false limited I, which was there before Fana, matured through the process of involution, and the limited false I was replaced by the real unlimited I in
It is
Fana.
replaced. The false I is never annihilated. The ego is the real thing. I keep repeating. Ego is astitva. Ego is existence. Ego is real. Ego cannot be annihilated. Ego can only be transformed from the false I to the divine I or the real I. So here, and the limited false I was replaced by the real unlimited I in Fana Fila. What is to be annihilated is the mind. Fana Fila.
In Bakabillah, this matured consciousness is now focused once again and is fixed on the I as the real unlimited I, on the mind as universal mind, on energy as unbounded energy, and on the body as a universal body called the Mahakarana Sharir.
So after the false I is transformed into the real I, and if we continue to remain in the body and also get back the consciousness of the illusory world, then we have what is known as, we have the Mahakaran Sharir is there, and there is a universal mind is also there,
Universal.
and the avatar and the Sadguru's function from that place.
Unbounded energy.
So here
universal
there's
mind.
another, of course we've done this. There is consciousness which is an evolving consciousness, which is that pre-human. Then there is an evolved consciousness, which means consciousness is full and complete and whole in the first human form. And now then there is an involving consciousness, which is belonging to the plane. And now on the seventh plane, Baba uses the terminology matured consciousness. That means consciousness freed from all the limitations of the impressions or samskaras, matured.
An important fact must be noted here that in the state of Bakabillah, simultaneously, the same consciousness is also focused and fixed on the limited I, mind, energy, and body. Wherefore, the Salik consciously experiences the false as falsity with the false, and the real as reality with the real.
So, here what Baba is trying to emphasize is that in this state of Salukyat, not only the Salik experiences the infinite I or the divine I and experiences the state of I am God, but also experiences the finite I, the illusory world. But the difference is he knows the illusion as illusion. That is why Baba says, knowing the false as false is knowing the truth. But here we are knowing the false as truth or as reality. But a Salik recognizes that this is false, this is an illusion, and he lives in the world of illusion without being attached to it, for the simple reason that he recognizes that as an illusion.
Consequently, in God's state of Bakabillah, the same consciousness simultaneously experiences the dual experiences of I am God and I am human.
So both the experiences a Salik would have simultaneously, not like sometimes I am God and sometimes I am human, simultaneously.
Along with this dual experience, the same consciousness spontaneously also experiences without break the infinite knowledge, power, and bliss of God, along with the experiences of the weaknesses and sufferings of humanity.
So both the Salik will experience.
It follows that in God's state of Bakabillah, God, in the form of an ordinary human being, establishes himself in his divine life, or man abides in the life of God.
So he abides in the life of God.
In short, Bakabillah is that state of God where abiding in or getting established in God is experienced by those who are defined as Saliks or Jivan Muktas.
They are also called Jivan Muktas.
The
That means
Salik,
they are already Mukta. They are free. They are free from the rounds of birth and death, but they are still alive. They are still in the body. Jivan Mukta.
the Salik continually and consciously experiences simultaneously the dual experience of the I am God state and I am human state, and accumulates infinite knowledge, power, and bliss, simultaneously experiencing human weaknesses and sufferings,
Both the experiences are simultaneous.
knowing their falsity to be based on the manifestation of the finite nothing that manifests out of his own state of being everything and infinite.
So he experiences the finite nothing, the original finite nothing which came, but he experiences the finite nothing that manifests out of his own state of being everything and infinite. Now he has become everything and infinite, and now he experiences that finite nothing which is coming out of his own state of infinity.
This is supplement.
Yeah,
Page-
24 and 25, page 245.
43.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. It goes from 43 to 45. 243, correct. Go ahead.
Supplement 24, the 4 types of mukti or liberation. Certain well-known terms to describe various types of perfection are stated here briefly so that the seeker may fit them into the framework of the subject of God realization. In describing these types of perfection, the key word mukti, which literally means liberation, is used here to define 4 types of liberation.
Now here Baba is describing about mukti or liberation. Sometimes it is also known as moksha. In other words, you are now free from the bondage of births and deaths. That is the meaning of mukti or liberation.
In the following table, all the 4 types of liberation mukti of the soul belong to the 7th plane. Number 1, ordinary mukti, ordinary moksha. Number 2, videha mukti. Number 3, jivan mukti. Number 4, param mukti. Number 1, ordinary mukti, najat, is achieved only after death by some exceptionally God-fearing, truth-loving, good souls. And this mukti usually comes 3 to 5 days after the soul has left the body.
In my understanding, when Baba says, remember me, remember my name at the time of breathing your last, and when Baba was asked the explanation, what does it mean that that soul comes to me? He had explained to C.B. Purdom, saying that that particular soul experiences infinite bliss eternally and does not come into the rounds of births and deaths. Then Baba further clarifies that this mukti is to be had after the body is dropped, 3 to 5 days after the body is dropped. So obviously, it is not a state of perfection. It is not a state of, in a sense, God realization, because God realization is to be had only in the human body. And the experience of the God realized soul is that of infinite power, infinite knowledge, and infinite bliss. Whereas in Najat Mukti or ordinary Mukti, which comes 3 to 5 days after the body is dropped, that particular soul only experiences infinite bliss eternally and doesn't come back into the rounds of births and deaths. That's what I understand Baba saying to Charles Purdom.
Since this mukti is attained without the body, the individual soul enjoys only bliss, anand. And all the power and knowledge are there, such a mukta cannot experience them. Such a liberated soul is conscious only of the bliss of union, and for him, creation no longer exists, thereby bringing to an end the constant round of births and deaths. Nirvikalpa Samadhi must not be confused with this ordinary mukti or moksha state. Should a soul reach the mukti state, it does so after the death of the physical body. Such a soul reaches God, but this occurs only after death. Thus, there is an important distinction between ordinary mukti on the one hand and nirvikalpa samadhi on the other, because the latter is experienced while the soul retains the body and thus becomes videha mukta.
Videha mukta. So those who have achieved nirvikalpa samadhi, they achieve what is known as videha mukta. So Baba is clarifying, don't mix up the two, because the ordinary mukti or najat mukti is to be had only after the body is dropped.
After we take his name.
Okay, after we take his name.
Number 2. Some
So
God...
when we talk about infinite bliss, Baba is, somebody may say, the bliss of union with God, that is the bliss that we experience eternally. That means there is no break in it, it is perpetual, it is perennial, there is no break, and you don't have to come back to life again.
Not like the triune attribute of...
No, you don't experience infinite knowledge and power, because you are not in the body and you won't be able to experience it, you
And
won't be
also
able to use it.
infinite bliss
Now,
because
since we are on it, I am just digressing. I don't know whether it is right for me to say or not. But there are many people who are of the opinion when asked, I don't want mukti, I don't want God realization, I want to come back and serve the Lord, I want to come back and serve the Master. Now, to each his own. I am just giving me my tidbit of knowledge of what I feel is that is that person's desire to come back and serve the Lord. Very good desire. But at the same time, it is a personal, selfish desire to serve the Lord. My take on this. What is the desire of the Lord? Because in my wish, Baba says, my wish. He says that you take my name and you come to me. So what is more important, Baba's wish or our wish? I look at it that way. And saying this, I am reminded of a story. I think we all know. Baba's spiritual sister, Pilamai, she was living in Karachi, was it? And when she got to hear, this was early in Baba's early life, when she got to know that Baba usually or always travels third class. In those days there were 3 classes. Third class in the train. She was driven to make a very beautiful small folding stool-like thing which can be easily carried by anybody. And when Baba is traveling in the train, it can be opened up and Baba can sit on that stool, because most of the time the third class compartments are packed and there is no seat available, and Baba had to travel standing. So that stool or chair or whatever was made. So one day it so happened that Pilamai was there in the same compartment where Baba and Pilamai were traveling together. Few of Baba's disciples were there. And Pilamai very proudly and happily says, Baba, I've got this made for you. Please sit, I'll be happy if you sit. And Baba said, no, you sit first, you sit. And Pilamai said, no, I can never sit because it is my desire that you sit and I have made it specially for you. I am not, what should I say? I should not be sitting on this. I am not worthy. I am not worthy of sitting on this because it has been made with a certain thought in mind, with a certain emotion in mind that you should sit. And this happens, as we say, tutu meme, you sit, you sit, you sit, you sit. Finally, Baba was so annoyed that he picked up the stool and threw it out of the running train. So the lesson that we need to learn, according to me and my limited intellect, is what is more important, my emotion for Baba or Baba's wish? What does Baba wish? Baba is wishing that we take his name and we pop off and go to the big pop, which is Baba, never to come back again. Is that more important, or is it my wish to come back and serve the Lord? It is just my thought, because many people ask this question to me. I personally feel a similar instance happened, I think it was in Mehrabad, where Baba was giving a darshan program, and Baba asked somebody, I don't know if it was Sadasiv Patil, Vishnu Master. Baba told Vishnu Master, put on my sandals, put on my chappal, and go and call somebody. It could be anybody. I forgot the name, Baidul, whosoever. So instead of putting on Baba's sandals and running, because it was hot summer month, it was burning hot, she bows down to the chappals and runs barefoot to convey the message that Baba is calling you. And Baba was so annoyed. And Vishnu said, or whosoever it may be, said, Baba, how can I wear your sandals? I am not worthy to put them on. That is again Baba said, okay, you are giving more importance to your emotions concerning my sandal rather than to obey my words. And by not obeying me and bowing down to my sandal, you have actually beaten me with my own sandal, because you are disobeying my word and giving more importance to your emotion connected with my sandals. What is more important?
So surrenderance and obeying is more important than love.
Absolutely, 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 absolutely. That's why Baba says, that understanding has no meaning, love has meaning, obedience has more meaning, holding my daman is the most meaning. Holding my daman means just keep holding on to him and do whatever he says, like a fortunate slave, as Eraj would say, All right. So coming back to Najat Mukti, why I digressed a little bit, with no offense meant to anybody who may be listening and who may still have this point. I remember in Bombay Center somebody said, no, but I don't agree. And I said, then you have to do one thing, that when you breathe your last, you must remember to forget him. You must remember to forget him. Then you will come back and then you can have your wish fulfilled and serve him.
There is a famous Kabir Doha, or I think Surdas. He says that I do not want to merge with you. I want to do the bhakti as Krishna and that. And then there is a rebuttal from other saint that you want to maintain that duality. Ultimately, the achievement is you become one with God.
I always jocularly said, Baba, let us say Baba's name and pop off. So one less headache for him, no? Again, we have to keep coming back. He wants to reduce his headache, so that one by one everybody is merging into me and I don't have to bear this burden. And you want to continue giving him the headache. So it's on a lighter vein, yes. All right, how much time do we have? 10 more minutes. You let me know. Okay.
Number 2.
So now we are doing the different types of muktis.
Some God-realized souls known as Videha Muktas retain the body for 3 or 4 days after becoming realized. Their consciousness is merged completely in their own real self, God, and they are not therefore conscious of their bodies or of creation. They experience constantly the infinite bliss, power, and knowledge of God, their own self now, but they cannot consciously use them in creation nor help others to attain liberation.
See, they are the person who themselves are not aware of their own bodies, like Mazube Kamil or Brahmi Bhoots, as we say. They are not even aware, so how can they help others consciously?
Nevertheless, their presence on earth for the few days they remain there is a center for the radiation of the infinite power, knowledge, and bliss of God, and those who approach them, serve them, and worship them are immensely benefited. Others retain the body for years according to the momentum of their prarabdha. The Videha Mukta is the Brahmi Bhoot or the Madzub e Kamil of the Sufis, and he experiences the trio nature of God, Sat, Chit, Anand, automatically.
So there are some Mazube Kamils who retain their body only for 2, 3, 4 days and they drop their bodies. And there are some who may retain for a very long period of time depending upon their prarabdha, would mean that depending upon their own samskarik pattern. It doesn't mean that their samskars are binding them, but perhaps because they are supposed to be in the body in order to help others, they are connected with other people, and when those other people serve these Mazube Kamil or Brahmi Bhoot, they get benefited without even the Mazube Kamil knowing about it, for the simple reason that he is not conscious of creation, he is only conscious of Satchitanand. I am God's state.
Number 3, the Jivan Mukta, Azade Mutlak, in Turiya Avastha, Fana Ma al Baka.
Now, Fana Ma al Baka is the Sufi terminology of the Turiya Avastha between the 8th and the 10th states of God after God realization. 8th is the God realization. So it is not the same Turiya Avastha which is there on the plains like Mazub Salik or Salik Mazub. No, this is the Turiya Ma al Baka, which means on the 7th plane, the real.
Enjoys all bliss, all knowledge, and all power, and his consciousness is of the I am God state and also of the 3 spheres, the gross, subtle, and mental, but being without duty, he does not use the bliss, knowledge, and power for others. Number 4, the Param Mukta.
I assume, I don't know, the Paramhamsa they come in this particular type. We can cross check it. The Jivan Muktas, they are in the Turiya Avastha. Okay. Param Mukta. That means Kutubs.
Who is known as the perfect master, Kutub or
Sadguru.
Paramhamsa is also perfect masters only.
Param Mukta, correct. But they are Muktas only, na?
Comes-
Baba is dividing these Muktis into 4 categories.
Comes back to normal consciousness after God realization and is simultaneously conscious of the I am God state and the 3 relative existences and their corresponding spheres.
3 relative existences, which mean mental sphere,
Gross.
mental, subtle, and gross. And they are aware of it, but they are aware of it as just a dream.
He not only enjoys all power, all knowledge, all bliss, but uses them in all the planes of existence through the universal mind and the universal body. Such Paramuktas are conscious of themselves as God, both in his unmanifest and manifest aspects. They know themselves both as the unchangeable divine essence, Zat,
Zat.
and as the infinitely varied manifestations, Sifat.
They are the highest. The highest which anybody can achieve in spirituality is that of Kutubiyat or perfect mastership or Sadguru. And amongst them there is again one who is known as the Kutub-e-Irshad, who is the head of all the Kutubs, the rest of the 4 Kutubs, who is the head of the entire spiritual hierarchy, which is consisting of 7,000 souls. And it is only when in the last cycle, that 11th age, when the avatar comes, at that time, the Kutub-e-Irshad hands over his charge to the avatar, and the avatar is then known as the Sahib-e-Zaman, And that is where the spiritual hierarchy becomes 7001.
They experience themselves as God apart from creation, as God, the creator, preserver, and destroyer, and as God who has accepted and transcended the limitations of creation.
Highest.
This means that such a one is conscious of every one of the 10 states of God shown on the chart facing page
So
158.
next time we'll be doing the charts, the earlier charts. Yeah, okay. The last one paragraph
The
only.
Paramukta constantly experiences and uses the absolute peace and perfection of the triune nature of God, Sat Chit Anand. He fully enjoys and suffers the divine sport of creation. He knows himself as God in everything and is therefore able to help everyone spiritually and can make other souls realize God as any of the 4 types of mukta. He is indeed the helper of humanity in particular and of creation in general.
So he is the Param Mukta, the Sadguru, the perfect master, or the Kutub. How many minutes? 2 minutes? 3 minutes. I think we need to stop here. We are now stopping on page number 100 and...
No, we are at 245.
Huh?
We are at 245 because you're going to read 138.
Okay, you want to read that 25th also. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are stopping here on 245. Next turn we will start with the supplement, a summary of the 4 types of mukti, which is there on page number 138. Any questions? Good. Thank you, Baba. Thank you once again. And we'll meet soon. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. Jai Baba. Thank you.